It's Gogeta and Broly, they're the next characters.
I know, but what comes after that? Are we getting a second Dragon Ball FighterZ? Are we getting a season 3 of characters? What's next for Dragon Ball FighterZ after these two final DLC characters? Recently, some data mining has been hinting at season 3 of DLC, containing only 4 characters. And for the longest time, I was convinced that we'd see a Dragon Ball FighterZ 2 before we ever saw a third season. Though upon further analysis, I think I'm gonna add some extra credibility to the season 3 data mining. And this look into the future of Dragon Ball FighterZ is brought to you by otakucharms.com. You guys love Dragon Ball, right? You probably also love some other anime like Naruto, One Piece, or One Punch Man, so why aren't you wearing your passion out on the streets? Wear what you love, from awesome t-shirts to cozy hoodies. Otaku Charms has clothing, accessories, and a lot more from your favorite anime franchises. The price you see on screen is all that you pay because no matter where you live, their shipping is 100% free. With new items going on sale all the time and a section full of items for $10 or less, there's never been a better time to visit their website, browse the store, and see if anything tickles your fancy. And if you decide to buy something, enter promo code Globku for an extra 10% off anything you purchase. Let's break down the data mining and why it's looking very likely that we're getting a season 3 of DLC characters. This analysis came from Saitsu, who dug into the game's code after the Janemba patch and found 4 unused character ID numbers. He went back to previous versions of the game where he found the character ID for Janemba before he released, but these 4 new character IDs are brand new. Typically, when a character ID doesn't exist in the game, their portrait shows up empty. But when a placeholder is created, it shows up with a Goku portrait and this text underneath. Each character currently in the roster has an ID number associated with them. It goes from 0 to 39. I know 39 is not an even number, but you gotta count the 0. So technically, we have the 40 characters from 0 to 39. The new IDs go from the number 40 to 43, and these would be our 4 new DLC characters. Having these new IDs in the game's code means the developer has put 4 placeholder character IDs into the game. For a moment, I thought this could potentially be something else. For instance, it could be character skins, since for a hot second it looked like Goku Super Saiyan was getting a Goku Super Saiyan 4 skin. And of course, we'll never forget those Janemba skins that Major Nelson promised, but Saitsu's research is solid. Looking at Videl, she doesn't have separate IDs for her short hair than pigtails version, so this is definitely looking like 4 brand new, unannounced characters. The number 4 itself is suspicious. Season 1 had 8 characters, Season 2 had 6. It makes sense that Season 2 only has 4, even if that will slow the game down to a halt. Even with 6 characters, it feels like it took ages for these guys to come out. There were some very long stale periods, especially with a 1 yearly balance patch policy implemented at the start of 2019. There were some pretty rough periods earlier this year where it just felt like it took forever for any updates to happen, but in my opinion, it was okay. It felt like Dragon Ball FighterZ was approaching its end, where we're gonna get this final season of characters and then a sequel would be announced, because Dragon Ball FighterZ 2 will definitely happen at some point. This game was way too successful for there not to be a sequel. Bandai Namco could take this Arc Sys framework and give them other anime IPs to work on. I know comment sections on YouTube videos and Twitter is always full of, hey Arc Sys, please make a Naruto game, please make a My Hero game, please make a whatever game. And it could definitely happen, but Dragon Ball FighterZ 2 is definitely in our future. There's absolutely no way they will stop here. But when are we getting a Dragon Ball FighterZ 2? To understand that, we need to understand how licensing works and how Bandai releases Dragon Ball games. With the way licensing works for different anime IPs, Bandai Namco must publish a Dragon Ball game every year. The details could be different depending on the anime IP we're talking about, but for bigger IPs like Dragon Ball and Naruto, they gotta release a game every year. That's part of their deal, and they could lose the license if they don't do so. I'm not entirely sure if they have to release a game every civil year or fiscal year, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about fiscal years, which start in April and end in March. For instance, the current fiscal year we're at started on April 1st, 2019 and will end on March 31st, 2020. And if the licensing deal doesn't work via fiscal years, then they've recently skipped a year between Xenoverse 2 and Dragon Ball FighterZ. But if we're talking fiscal years, then it all makes sense. Xenoverse came out in the fiscal year of 2016-17, and Dragon Ball FighterZ came out at the end of the following fiscal year on January 25th, 2018. The fiscal year that followed, which was 2018-2019, saw the release of Dragon Ball Legends, their current Star mobile game. And the current fiscal year of 2019-2020 already had a game released, which was Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission. The next game is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, coming out in 2020. This could be the current fiscal year if it comes out before the end of March, or the next fiscal year if it comes out after the end of March. Currently, talks seem to place it at the beginning of 2020. When the game was first announced, it was set to release in 2019, but at E3 2019, the trailer ends with a message early 2020, which would put it on the current fiscal year. And now at Gamescom, that message stayed consistent, so they're still aiming for this this window, which means Bandai already has something planned for 2020 or 2021. But what could it be? In my opinion, a new mobile game would actually be a terrible decision at this point. Dragon Ball Legends is still going very strong, and releasing a new mobile game could actually do more harm than good. Why try to move players away from your successful game? Why split your audience like that? It doesn't sound like a smart move. And if Kakarot is indeed coming out early 2020, this being a single player game, its lifespan will be kinda short. I'm not saying the game can't be successful or fun or good, but like any single player game, once you beat it, you're done. You can try to beat it again on hard mode or go for a completionist run, but the game has a limited lifespan, which means the logical step here is to release another console game on the next fiscal year. And if we go the console route, one of three things might happen: a brand new Dragon Ball game, Xenoverse 3, or Dragon Ball FighterZ 2. And out of the three options, Dragon Ball FighterZ 2 seems the most likely, and here's why. Kakarot is already a new game. Making another new type of Dragon Ball game right after Kakarot sounds like the kind of risk Bandai Namco does not take very often, so the chances of that happening are extremely low. Xenoverse 2 is still going strong with no signs of slowing down. Xenoverse 3 could happen, and it would be justified, but when you compare Xenoverse 2 to Dragon Ball FighterZ, it just feels like FighterZ has slowed down a lot more. Like I mentioned, after Jiren and Videl, it felt like it took forever for GT Goku to come out. And then we had another eternity before Janemba. And I'm not especially active in Xenoverse 2, and by that I mean I'm not active at all, but Xenoverse 2 just got a DLC pack back in July with another DLC pack planned for the end of the year. And it just doesn't feel like the game is slowing down at all. So to finally answer the question at the title of this video, what's next for Dragon Ball FighterZ? Season 3 of DLC is very likely, not only because of the data mining, but also because of the timing. The soonest would be able to see a sequel to Dragon Ball FighterZ would be by the end of 2020. And even then, I think it's a bit early. 2021 would be my personal bet, and that leaves us with a full year of Dragon Ball FighterZ to enjoy. If the game has no updates, it dies. So the obvious choice is to keep the DLC characters coming, even if it's only 4 characters total. The amount of DLC has to slow down if the team wants to focus on developing the sequel. This way, even if Kakarot gets pushed back for some unforeseen reason, they're still releasing DLC while waiting to release the sequel. My biggest concern right now is whether or not 4 new characters in a year will be enough to keep the player base active. Because even with 6 characters, I think we lost a lot of players this year. The game has been a little stale at times, but of course more updates could come. Not all patches have to include characters. Some game modes, skins, or even balance updates could fill in the void. But if the team is focused on making Dragon Ball FighterZ 2, there might not be a lot of resources for all of that. And let's not forget that Team Red is already working on Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, which, even though it will be released by the time Dragon Ball FighterZ 2 comes out, they'll probably still be working on DLC characters. And Team Red is also working on the new Guilty Gear. I don't know how big Arc System Works has gotten, but that sounds like a lot of games for a single team. If on top of those 2 games they still have to split their team between Dragon Ball FighterZ DLC and Dragon Ball FighterZ 2, then that's just a massive endeavor that only a massive team could undertake. And that's pretty much what's next for Dragon Ball FighterZ. Don't forget to check out otakucharms.com, the sponsor of this video, and use promo code Globku at checkout. And I'd love to know which characters you'd like to see in Season 3 of Dragon Ball FighterZ. You've got 4 characters, so use those wishes wisely. Let me know your picks in the comments down below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.